Good morning, I'm Bandula Jayasekara. I don't think the gentle giant of Sri Lankan cricket needs any introduction. Welcome to NewsLine, Ravi.
Thank you, Bandula.
Now, I mean, lots of people, there are lots of questions, there are lots of interest. Now, the first question, people want to know, your fans, what made you leave or give up Sri Lankan cricket at an early stage and leave for Australia?
Yeah, look, it's a question that's asked many times. I mean, for us as a family and for me particularly, we were semi-professional, if at all. We had to work to put food on the table, as one would say, quite literally. But and we had to make a call at a certain stage of your life whether you can continue playing cricket for much longer, or whether you need to make the break and go away and do what's right for yourself and for the family. In particularly when you start having children. We got two small kids and we had two small sons. We had a residency to move to Australia at that stage, which we had to make use of. And in our thought process was that it was probably the right time for the children in particular to make that move. So we had to break away from that from cricket and then make the move to Australia for the sake of the kids. And that's what happened. And so you tend to give it away a little bit early than what you normally do nowadays, I would suggest.
Now, Sri Lanka lost you, the Sri Lankan cricket fans lost you, and you know that. I mean, you will be very modest, but they love you and they still love you. But have you got any regrets for giving up cricket at that time?
Well, look, sometimes you think about it, yes, you do, because there's only one time in your life that you can play cricket when you're young, and you can't do it that much when you're much older. So you really think back and feel that you probably had another couple of years, and I certainly did think that I had probably another two good years left in me to play at the elite level and perform, and I was probably left very much in the peak years of my career. But I will say would go to a lot of other players who played with me during that time, who had to make that break and move either into full-time work or for family reasons.
Are you happy the way things have evolved now? You have full-time cricketers and they don't have to do any other job. Are you happy about this progress?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, that's the dream. When you're young and for us as Sri Lankan cricketers, when I played, we didn't probably have the opportunity of being absolutely full-time. But now the game has evolved, the payments are much better, players are able to contribute most of their life to the game and to playing cricket, and they can make a very handsome living out of that, which can sustain them for the future, and that's really important. Because I think they give so much to the game, and then they can be part of the game and then hopefully give back to the game as well, and then sustain themselves financially going back and their families for the future, and that's really important.
And Ravi, you first started as a batsman, then you became a bowler, and then you were a fine all-rounder. Lots of people see you as a bowler, but you should tell our viewers that you started as a batsman, how it all happened, and who introduced you to Sri Lanka as a bowler.
Look, I started my cricket as a junior very much as a batsman. Opening the batting, and so I started off with a reasonable technique when I batted. But as I got older, I probably was not quite good enough to be, a top-flight batsman. So I had to bowl, and I was a fairly big guy. So I used to pick up the ball, and I could bowl probably quicker than most at that time. And that's how the bowling evolved. And I became sort of a bowler, and then I was fortunate enough to be at Trinity, and we had Bertie Vijayasinghe, who was our coach as well at that time. So a great person to have as coach. He coached a number of international Sri Lanka players who went through him. So I was able to get the basics of those early years with Bertie, and then evolved from there. But as I continued to play and played for Sri Lanka, I never gave up the fact that I was a reasonably good enough batsman, and I could, I had the basics around me to be able to develop that part of the game as well. So, and you will always keep evolving as a cricketer. When you play international sport, you always got to be better every day.
You were vice captain under Arjun. How was it playing with Arjun?
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I was lucky with Arjuna, because Arjuna and I played, I played against him at school when Arjuna was a young schoolboy cricketer and a superstar coming up through the ranks at that time, and then he played Sri Lanka at a very young age, and then we all played together from the time we were quite young. So and we grew up together. So as cricketers through the Sri Lanka system, Arjuna, I mean, look, his leadership qualities, I mean, is he's well spoken about, and what has been done. I was fortunate enough to be his vice captain during that time, and Arjuna was a learning captain in the early stages. I mean, for us, we were all learning at that stage, and for me, being his vice captain was really to support him and support the team and what was required, and get the players around us to be able to play the game and do what we had to do for Sri Lankan cricket.
And interesting, the questions from viewers, they are saying, ask Ravi about Aravinda's 167 in Brisbane.
Look, fabulous innings. I was fortunate to spend a lot of time on the other side of the wicket, watching Aravinda score a lot of those runs, and that was a wonderful tour, because for us, I think, sort of started defining us as a cricketing nation, because when we went to Australia for that series, Australia had come back after beating England in the Ashes. That scored lots of runs, and they were hoped that they'll beat Sri Lanka. I mean, we were a relatively very young cricketing nation, and the expectation was that they will beat us. And we are the young unit and a young side. We were not going to lie down and take anything for granted. And we had players like Aravinda, awesome talent who could bat really well. And that 116 was a fabulous innings. It really defined Sri Lankan cricket. It defined Aravinda as a world-class player, of absolute talent. And I was fortunate enough to spend a lot of time with him on the other side of the wicket in a long partnership.
Googlists are coming. Who is Sri Lanka's best batsman? Sangakkara or Aravinda de Silva?
Look, it's a comparison that will be talked about for a long time. Both very different eras, very different characters. Kumar is a very passionate player, who likes setting records and making those things happen. And I think in a particular type like cricket, and someone like Kumar would want to really have a very sound, tough, strong record against him. And some players just like playing the game, and the record is the record. Aravinda was, in India, was a fabulous player. I mean, he had talent to burn, and he was a wonderful player. Probably doesn't have the same record that Kumar had in terms of runs and run, but from a real talent perspective, he was a very special player.
So you cannot compare that?
No, they're different eras. You really can't. It's very difficult to compare. I mean, for me, I would say Aravinda was probably the best, because I played with him in that era. But then that's not taken away from the fact that Kumar was a fabulous player as well, and one would say the same for Mahila as well. He was fabulous.
And we cannot also forget the stylish Roy Dias.
Yeah, absolutely. And Roy was a fantastic player. He's very. This thing, not many people would remember him, but there are a lot of people who talk about Roy.
And also, people are asking questions. What have you got to say about late Gamini Disanayake's influence and contribution to Sri Lankan cricket?
Look, it cannot be underestimated, what Gamini did for Sri Lankan cricket. Where we are and what we are today has a lot to do with what Gamini put to the game. Mr. Dissanayake came in and, really took Sri Lanka and really put us on the map. And really fought hard for Sri Lanka to be entered into the International Cricket Council as a fully fledged test nation. And him and the administration team at that time behind Gamini, the amount of work that they put in to get us where we are, we have benefited as a result of that, and future generations will benefit as a result of that.
And also, you're with MTV, you're with Maharajas, and I don't know, I don't think our chairman would like it, but you were telling me that he got your first a set of weights, right, Mr. Rajamahendan?
Yeah, Mr. Rajamahendan. Yeah, absolutely. When I was a young fellow, trying to make a name for myself and break into the national team, and having to, to get fitter, stronger, and be this thing, he was good enough to organize a set of weights for me.
Ravi, now you like to open batting. Why did you like to open batting? A lot of people want to know this question.
For me, I like the batting. If everyone who bowls all these things, they can bat. I was no exception to that. I liked batting for the simple reason was that I used to always sort of believe that opening batting was fantastic, because everybody was behind the wicket, so there was not many fielders in front to stop from scoring. That was the way I thought about it. But I found playing the fast bowlers a little bit easier than trying to play the spinners. I was probably not not very good on my
So
feet.
you enjoyed opening with Siddharth Vittalani?
Yeah, I enjoyed us opening with Siddharth. I was lucky enough to open with Siddharth. Siddharth was a fabulous player, but in test matches I didn't open a hell of a lot. I opened a little bit, but I think I probably opened a little bit more in the one days and a few other things more.
And then I'm sure the viewers would want to. I mean, you're here, and then it's all memories. And about the two famous matches in Kanpur and Sialkot. I mean, if you could recall, you took 8 wickets in the Sialkot match, and it's J.R. Ratnayeke and R.J. Ratnayeke. Ramesh took 2 wickets, and you took 8 wickets. And then the Kanpur match, you scored 94 or 97?
93.
93.
93. Yep.
If you could go down memory lane and share your thoughts about those 2 important matches with our viewers.
Sialkot was an interesting game. I mean, that we played the game. It was a fairly lively wicket. We played games of, a fairly formidable pace attack in Pakistan had Nimran and Wasim and a fairly strong side. So 8 wickets. I mean, you go into the game and you always think, this looks good for a few wickets. 8. You normally never dream that you'll get 8 if you're happy with a 5 or a 4 for at that stage. So that was special. I mean, that record stood for a little while till Murli came and carved them all up.
But that's a special record. I mean, 10 wickets taken by Ratnayeke.
Absolutely, yeah, you say that as well, yeah. And I didn't realize it at that stage. Yeah, very much so, yeah.
And then there's so much of confusion. Even today now, one of our producers asked whether you and Ramesh are brothers. That continues.
Yeah, that continues. A lot of people have asked me in Australia as well whether we are brothers or whether we are related. We have never been, but fortunately Ramesh and I are good friends and we played a lot of cricket together.
Did your families knew each other, or did they?
No, not really.
No. But then,
yeah.
you played cricket with Ramesh.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
Then what did you do when you went to Melbourne? Did you play any cricket, or what did you do? You completely gave up cricket?
No, I played about another 10 years playing as a club professional. And playing, I didn't want to play anything much more than that, because you really have to establish yourself from a work career point of view. Went back to studying in university and trying to establish yourself on a professional basis as well. But I have no connection with cricket now. I've stayed away from it, but I'm a passionate follower and follow Sri Lankan cricket passionately. I get involved with a little bit of coaching occasionally, not very often now.
Any plans to help Sri Lankan cricket if requested?
You'll always want to put back into Sri Lankan cricket if you ever asked and if you ever wanted, but I think the game moves on. It's become very analytical now. A lot of computers and a lot of other bits and pieces that are used in analyzing the game and how it is done. So it's quite an interesting process. Yeah.
Is it too analytical, Ravi? That dissect and so much.
Yeah, they do that, I think, in the bowling thing, but I think there's still the human element that's in that's very much, and you still want players to be players and let them also express themselves a little bit, and that's probably what gets the best out of them. Yeah.
Is the pressure too much on players now, or was it too much then? How do you compare then and now?
Look, different eras, different games, and I think there's a lot of pressure on players now to perform a lot more because there's a lot more cricket. They're paid a lot more, so the expectations are a lot higher. Before as well, you really wanted to perform, and every player who plays international sport wants to, wants to perform and wants to be a superstar, and that's important. But I think today there's a lot more pressure on players to perform consistently at a higher level.
Now the viewer wants to know whether did you enjoy sledging, or were you sledged?
No, I don't think you enjoy getting sledged or enjoy sledging. It's been a little bit past the game, but you'll always get the odd snidey comments that go on the field. That's all part and parcel of the game, and that's how it is.
Mainly from the Aussies, right?
No, I think all sides get involved. I don't think we were the saints either. But what happens on the field, it happens on the field, and you're pretty good friends after that anyway. So
the next time, like Glenn McGrath, he was a very fierce competitor, and then when he's out, he was such a quiet, silent.
Yeah, that's right. I think they call in Australia, they call them white line fever sort of thing. You cross those ropes and then you go nuts. But you get players like that, they get themselves fully engrossed and involved in the game, and then apart from that, they're very different outside it.
Ravi, I know you're a very independent and a non-controversial person, but what are your views on the Sri Lankan cricket, the present Sri Lankan cricket? Do you see too much of politics, or do you think they are not looking after the players? What are your views, independent views?
From look, the administrative point of view, the game has changed, and I think that the administration has changed with how they manage the game and run the game and done a lot of that. And every administration is different. I think structurally the game, from a general structural management point of view, I don't think the game that has changed from the time I played, which is very disappointing, because I think we have a system which is governed in some form through an election system, which I think is horrible, really. I think there needs to be more company structural way how it's brought about and how they bring that. I think there may have been attempts to try and do that. I don't think it has been successful, but I think we need to move towards that, and the rest of the world has moved towards that. And I think to be more professional, be more open, be more accountable. I think we need to move down that route.
And I want to know, that means other countries, they don't have elections, like take Australia or England, they don't have, but I know India, they have.
India probably has, other boards may have, I'm not sure. In the Australian system, it's board of directors, and then the board of directors has...
They're appointed.
They're appointed, and they're representatives of various states and boards and other parts of the business. So it really depends on how the constitution is formatted. And I think the Sri Lankan cricket constitution is such that you need to have this election system. So really move away from that, it requires a fairly big constitutional change, the way I understand it. I am not 100% certain
so that if that is changed, it will do cricket much better, in the great interest of cricket? I think a company structure.
Yeah, I think the general management of the game can always evolve and change. It is never a perfect system, but it needs to get better and more accountable, more professional, and I think all the dollars and cents that go through the whole thing need to be accountable. That probably does happen. I'm not anywhere close to it. Now, I would imagine that happens. You would hope so. But I think there's always better ways to do things, and I think administratively we have not moved with the times.
Ravi, I know you're here for a short time, but how do you see school cricket in Sri Lanka? Because Arjuna has always said he wanted to develop school cricket, and that's why you started as a schoolboy cricketer. How do you see that? Have you tried to understand that, how the development and how it evolved?
One of the most fortunate things that we have in Sri Lanka is that we have a wonderful school system in terms of sport, and particularly cricket in particular. If we just concentrate on the cricket side of things, we come through those age group systems, through the school system. The schools are very proud of the teams that they have and the players that they have. That generates good cricketers coming through the system, and that's our real feeder system into going into international cricket, and the feeder and bringing the young players through the system. That's really important, and I think putting time and effort into that system is important, because that feeds into the under 19s, under 17s, under 19s, and then into the 18s and into the national side, and brings players through. I mean, when I played cricket at the school level during that time, we had players coming through the school system who were quite ready at that stage to fall into international cricket first class level. Of course, we were all sped through the system at that time. We had Roger Vijayasuriya, we had Ranjan Madugala, Sudat Pasquale, Gaidi Alvis, myself came through that system, Asanta Dimel. We all came through that format. Ramesh also came through that format, Ratnayeke as well, and I think then there are probably many others as well that I haven't named. But the system now is a little bit different structurally, so that there's a pathway to get to Sri Lanka cricket and have players develop a little bit more ready for international cricket than when we were at that point. We had to learn on the job, as one would speak.
I really want to ask this question. I didn't plan to ask this question, but I want to ask this question now. Next year is the interest of the cricketing public. Next year you have the Battle of the Blues in Kandy, St. Anthony's Trinity, 100 years of cricket. You captain Trinity, and you came from St. Anthony's to Trinity. I'm sure the viewers will be interested to know, are you going to come back next year for the match, and what are your thoughts on that? It will be interesting.
I have no plans on coming back for
year?
that game, but I believe there is a fairly big contingent coming from Australia to watch the game of Antonians, I know, and I think I'm sure there's a fair number of Trinidadians coming back as well. Look, those big matches and those traditions that Sri Lanka cricket has created over the years of the school system, the Joe Pete, the Royal Tomian, and I'm sure there were a couple of St. Sebastian's, Prince of Wales, and you had Mahinda and St. Aloysius, I think, down south.
Yeah, Richmond, all
those teams. That brings the heart of what the competition is about, what school cricket's about, and helps develop the whole game for Sri Lanka. And it's a healthy rivalry, and that's fantastic.
So you're going to miss it next year?
I'll miss it next year.
Yeah. But then what about the contribution made by cricketers from the central province to Sri Lankan cricket? Even Ranjan started his cricket at Trinity, right?
Yeah, Ranjan Madhu.
Later.
Ranjan Madhu was, he might claim he was from Royal, but we can all, Trinidadians can claim that he started off at Trinity. There have been a number of players who have come from the central provincial area that have created, and number of our international players have come from more the province. Going back years ago, it used to be the dominant Colombo schools, Royal St. Thomas's, Anand and Anand, that have contributed to Sri Lankan cricket. Nowadays, you probably find more players tend to come from the outstations and from the outer schools, and I was fortunate. Now, the last couple of weeks, last week I was away, out in the country on a sort of like a Trinity College reunion thing, and we were out in Angle and we were mucking around on the beach, and there were young kids.
I saw that. What happened?
The young kids playing cricket there, and there's some wonderful movers and players, and that is what you want to see. Those young children coming through and playing cricket and hopefully moving into the ranks in some lovely talent, and that's what you want to get out coming from the outstations.
Ravi, there's this discussion and a debate of bringing a red card to cricket. Are you for it or against it?
Cricket is not a contact sport, and the red card and the yellow card and all that there's a place for it in football and rugby and in other sports. In cricket, I don't really see that, but there is no point trying to penalize players for bad behavior and show them a red card and tell them to get away. I think there are different ways to manage that, and I think the administration needs to look at that. Over governing and over administration of the game, there needs to be a fine balance. I don't think red cards there's a place in it for us.
You think administration should shelve that plan completely?
Personally, that's my view. I think it can be debated, but I don't think it has a place in the game, not in cricket.
What do you think of I don't think you had a manager when you played cricket. Now you have so many managers. Everybody has a manager.
Yeah.
You think they are a good influence or a bad influence? Especially Sri Lanka cricket, there's a debate here about these managers trying to influence.
No, I think a lot of international sportsmen have management teams and management who do all that work. It leaves the player to concentrate on the game and do what he has to do to be the player that he needs to be the international superstar that he needs to be, leaving all the commercial aspects of what he does to somebody who's more in tune with that and can go around doing that, and it has its benefits, and a lot of people will say no, it doesn't, but it leaves the player to concentrate on what he's supposed to do and do well, and leaving the commercial aspects to somebody who's an expert to do that as well and maximize the player's opportunity.
Now, like your friend Arjuna didn't have a manager and he didn't appear in any of the commercials. I think he appeared only in one of the polio commercials to help Rotary. But things have changed now. Sometimes the commercial interests have taken priority. They have given priority than cricket.
Look, it depends. Yeah, people will argue that, but I think that there is players are icons of the game, and there are a number of fans, so they become a very marketable commodity. So they will and if they can balance that level of time with their requirements for what they need to do for cricket, they will only be good enough on the marketing side if their performances on the field and what they actually do on the field is. So that needs to be the contributing factor. The problem is whether the player has the maturity to be able to balance that. and understand that. But they need, I mean, a player will need to understand that performance is vital to everything else that's coming up.
What are your thoughts on big money IPL and the big bash in Australia and other big bashes? What are your thoughts on?
Look, the game has evolved. I mean, for the betterment for players, the commercial aspects of the game have grown because of the growth of television and the interest of television and viewers in the game, and then the commercialization of the game with sponsoring and all that sort of stuff has happened. That has brought much more wealth to the players, better salaries, better packages and all that sort of thing. And I mean, for me, I think that's been fantastic. I think it's been really good.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I don't want to name names, but some people were accused of putting club and this IPL before country in the past. And then that's for big money. And Arjuna blamed some cricketers some time ago when he was in administration.
Look, I think
country comes first.
Country will always come first, and what you need to do for the country does come first, and having to play that is important, because no IPL franchise or no IPL team is ever going to think that is ever going to pick you if you haven't performed at the international level for your country, and your country brings you, gives you those opportunities, coaches you, and invests a lot of money and time in you as a person to be able to perform at that level. Once you have performed at that level, the people like the IPL sites and the various other franchises who are interested in hiring your services and offering you the big money does so because you have performed for your country and you have created a name for yourself as a result. But at the end of the day, your country and your opportunities to serving your country should come ahead of that. But in having said that, my understanding of the IPL system was that there was a window created for the IPL that would create the opportunities for players to play in the IPL and contribute that time for the IPL while having to engage in their international commitments. And if that was the case, then and those are the commitments that all cricket boards have given, then you need to abide by that and abide by the contractual obligations of the players as well.
Thank you very much, Ravi, for joining us, and we wish you all the best, and we hope your stay will be wonderful and you'll meet all your old colleagues during the next few days you'll be spending here, and you're going to spend the new year here, right?
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. A good break in Sri Lanka and spending time with family and friends. Yeah.
Thank you very much, and that's all for Newsline. We'll be with you tomorrow morning.